Are you having a laugh?
What?
You just said each member of the team is chosen for their unique abilities. He does exactly what I do.
But better.
Welcome everybody to the second installment of This Looks Like El Tigre. I've been waiting for months to see Maya and the 3 come out, and I gotta say, totally worth it. Like, this isn't a show, it is an event. Like, this is movie level animation put into a 9-episode mini-series. And no matter how hard I checked the floor, I could never find the ball because it was not dropped anywhere, mostly. This is easily one of the most ambitious things I've seen all year, which is why it pains me that it taps out at an 8 out of 10. Like, I was rooting for this shit. And while I'm advocating for everyone to go check it out, I've got some petty nonsense that keeps me from declaring it to be amazing. And so, as all good pretending to be fair critics go, I'm gonna layer my positive and negatives till I run into spoilers, and I'll get rid of half of you to talk about them. Alright, you game? Let's go. So for starters, Maya and the 3 is a story of an Aztec princess named Maya, not sure if they're really Aztec, but they go by Tekka, so Aztec we'll say, who dreams of becoming a warrior and not the diplomat her parents want her to be. She seems doomed to be trapped in her gender role till sexy Batman announces that the god of war wants to sacrifice her to level himself up. To save her family, Maya embarks on a quest to recruit warriors from each of the neighboring kingdoms to stand against the evil power, fulfill a prophecy, and discovering the true power of friendship and overcoming grief.
He does exactly what I do.
But better.
Yes, this is not a groundbreaking story. The plot, the characters, and the motivations are all things that you've seen in other works. Like, I'm not knocking these characters, but come on. We got the insecure comedic relief, the no-nonsense tough girl, the big strong guy, and a sexy vampire. None of them are breaking new ground, but it really doesn't need to, as they are so enjoyable on their own that you'll have no problems getting into their characters. Like the local big guy Pichu, yes, that's his name, and yes, I did giggle every time I heard it. But Pichu, he isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but his character isn't defined by his intelligence or hell, even his strength. It's all about his motivations. He wants a heroic death to see his family again after one decision inadvertently got them killed. And that is compelling in of itself. He's a trope, but his goals aren't, which is something that really elevates these characters away from the bare bones that we'd seen other things. Raya. Each character has a motivation for why they're on this quest outside of to do good, creating a personal connection with us that gets us way more invested in them as people and the outcome of their adventure. And all 4 of the main characters have this level of depth. There's an element of tragedy to all of them that I love how it's explored. They've all suffered from loss and it motivates them in how they live their lives. Any one of them could have been the main character of their own show, which is always a sign of great character work, as it keeps them from feeling expendable. I've watched shows where I don't remember a single name outside the main guy, and let's be honest, it's almost always a guy, while the rest are just tropes, or maybe I'll remember them by the color of their hair. Here though, they're Maya, Rico, Chimi, and the fact that I can remember that is an achievement all on its own, because the writing was great, the characters are fun, and yes, they fulfill an archetype, but they are fully fleshed out. I wish I could say that about the side characters though. Yeah, this is where some of the nitpicky BS comes in that this series fails to hit amazing territory from me. Like, it looks phenomenal, but it's also got the same problem I've had with almost all of Jorge Gutierrez's projects, because for years, visual style and direction, top notch, but when it comes to the non-protagonists and the non-villains, they all feel the same. Like giant man-child dad, giant man-child great uncle, skeleton twins, other skeleton twins. It's not just that they're doing the same trope of like, okay, I know exactly who this character is. It's that I've seen this exact character before. And some creators can get away with that shit. Osamu Tezuka basically only knew how to draw 10 people, but he made a living off of that shit. Here though, and for the side characters, especially when they're trying to be comedic, not being the strongest, I always wanted them to just keep moving on. It's like, it's not terrible, it's fine, but every time it's like, oh, let's go see the dad and the mom, I'm like, you could hurry this up, we don't need this. Like, even the villains that we see, like we see storm gods, we see a god of earthquakes and gators, I'm like, great, this is cool. And then you quickly realize like, oh, you're another generic personality type. You look cool though, and I feel like that's one of my biggest problems with most of this man's work. I think they're all good, but it plays to all these established tropes just a little bit too much. Not as big a problem here as it was in the Book of Life. The problem definitely starts to create cracks once we're away from the main cast. The villains look amazing, by the way, which yeah, those visuals, wow, is this style like, it is just a work of art. It's stylized to hell and back, and the level of detail that gets put into each character is just frankly insane, and there's no way that this could legitimately be made in 2D without breaking the bank. Every character has just the most intricate and detailed costumes that make no functional sense, but damn are they pretty to look at. Like, Lady Macbeth is the goddess of death, but also goddess of life, so they really weave both elements into her costume. Like, she has the long dark hair, she has the skull face, but she also has corn stockings, a marigold headdress, a necklace made out of hands, and dozens of other small details that you honestly will not notice on your first viewing, which to me adds a lot to the replay value, as it always gives you something new to discover if you're paying attention for it. Like how Bearzilla, who is just El Oso, he's just El Oso from El Tigre, and I love it. Like, Bearzilla has Viking tattoos. All the other characters have Mesoamerican ones, and that level of distinction, that little bit of detail, that craft, that love, is what I come to these movies for. Like, the character design has no reason to go this fucking hard, and it's literally every character. They all have this level of crap put in, and it's just so out of pocket that I love it. Like, in the environments, same level of detail. The jungles are the jungles, but as soon as it starts getting like to the pyramids, to the creatives, like just the views, like, it looks goddamn cinematic. That's what really sells this as being like a movie. I'm just so happy to see something like this being created, because we don't really get anime and miniseries like ever. Like, we'll get one season animes that get fucking canceled. We'll get all these other like, oh, movies, OVAs, but a miniseries. And that is something special. And I absolutely love what this series is doing. And I just hope to death that this is gonna be an uber success. Also, this thing shouldn't be watched in one sitting. Like, every episode is 26 minutes or longer, and while they each progress the story, they all kind of feel like their own episode, not just a part 1 or part 2. Stuff is set up and then is wrapped up in a very satisfying way. Like, beginning of a lot of episodes, they'll give flashbacks to the start. They'll explain like details of who a character is, what's their motivation, and I love these scenes as it really does set up the characters perfectly. And from there, you go on to actually watch the episode. You'll like the characters even more. You'll see them like meet up with Mai. You'll see them join the team. You'll then have that nice, satisfying conclusion. Then it goes on for another 4 minutes to set up the next one, which leads to me to one of the problems with this series. Is yes, 9 episodes, movie level quality. I don't think that it needs to have these cliffhangers though. Like, some of them are fine, other ones are trying way too goddamn hard to get us hooked. Like, this is Netflix, I'm nowhere near the remote, I can't stop this. So you don't need to have this teaser for why I should continue watching, I'm already there. Like, you nailed it, you can cut right now. We don't need to watch the gang get tossed around wind tunnels. An aspect of the show I am a bit mixed on is the aspect ratio, because it does look very cinematic in having the black bars on both sides, but they also do this trick where effects or characters will appear on those black borders as if it's just going beyond, which can be a very cool effect, and definitely be one of the staples for this movie for me, as it both sells us on the motion and even sells us on the size. Like, you'll have creatures that are like massive, huge, that it literally like goes outside of the borders. Like, that's super cool. Other times it just looks like cheap 3D.
Head west to the sunlight. This is the best day of my life.
Like, that honestly hurt my soul, and I can't even properly explain why. When it's just an object or a special effect, I think this technique looks great. Like, when characters do it, it doesn't look so good. I think it just draws attention to how this is a computer-generated character when it's put against the blackness of space. And that's a break of immersion that I don't think this series needed. And the other problem I had with it, and this is probably more of my Spectrum OCD ass hyper-focusing, but I always felt like I was anticipating it happening. Like in fight scenes, which I loved, I always had a small part of my brain wondering, when was the next thing going to pop out of the border? And this became more tedious than it was worth, with me constantly having my attention drawn to that top border rather than fully focusing on the fight itself. And the action is great. Like, hopefully you're not like me and that just became one of the main things you focus on, but it just became one of those things I'm like, okay, waiting. waiting. Oh, it happened. Waiting. Oh, that happened again. And it just kind of consumed me some of the time, which is sad because the action is great. And it's really inventive too, in how characters fight and defeat their foes. And like some of it is pure nonsense, but Rule of Cool is definitely going to allow it. Like when Chimi is fighting 2 storm gods and trapped in a cyclone, with only 1 arrow left, she has Maya throw her sword. She then proceeds to shoot it, splitting the arrow in half to hit both gods at once. Makes no sense, but fuck it, it's cool. And that's something that I just adore about this series. It is so fucking cool. Like from the designs, from the characters, from the dialogue, I am just sitting here, smile on my face, enjoying all of it. It's great spectacle, it's good writing, and my god are all the characters pretty. Loved everything. Some problems with the writing, some weird gimmick stuff that bugged me, but I want to also get into some spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about the kinky bat sex, this may be your time to dip. If you don't want to get spoiled, because it's spoiler time in 3, 2, 1, Zadass. Of the many things I want to discuss, let's talk about the dead brothers. Because Maya had 3 brothers, all of whom die. A funeral is held, and 30 seconds later, they're trying to lighten the mood with some comedy, and no. Like, it's a bit too soon for Maya to be energetic after losing her 3 brothers like that. And this is made even worse with how the show kind of just forgets them after episode 3. Like, there's never any scenes that reinforce how important they were to her, or show us how the grief of losing them is driving her on this revenge quest. It's always framed as to save my family, to stop Alfred Molina. That connection to I'm doing this for them is kinda just out the window. And I don't need her to be, oh my god, my brothers taught me how to fish. I'm like, we don't need any of that sentimental bullcrap. I just needed a more consistent through line between her losing her brothers, mourning them, and then going on this revenge quest without the immediate comedy / lightened tone of her being ecstatic about the prophecy. If they had stayed on that just a little bit longer, let us mourn with her, I would have felt a little bit better about it. As is, they kind of die, she moves on, and they pop up later as Force Ghosts. And I think this is just one of those problems of this series being split up the way that it is, makes it a little bit harder to keep that sense of loss progressing throughout the story. It hampers the revenge quest if every episode you have to reiterate what you're avenging. It's excessive, but it could have been brought up at least somewhere in the middle. Also, this is one of the bigger ones that I had. This might have been my dumbass missing a scene, but I had no idea what they were talking about when they said Maya was lying to her friends. Like, they say Maya's plan was to use the warriors to defeat Mictlan, but instead, the plan that she was telling everyone was to destroy the gate. And I kinda thought that they could do both. Like, I never picked up on that, oh no, she's outright lying about what she wants to do. Like, yeah, Maya lied to Chimi about saying that she was gonna introduce her to the death goddess, but to everyone else, like, that scene straight up confused me because it did feel like it was coming out of nowhere. Like, either that needed to be laid up that she was lying. Yeah, if she told Rico, hey, I need you to help destroy the gate. Oh, we're just going to destroy the gate? And she just like slow blinks and goes, yes. Have that reinforce that she has ulterior motives and that she is in fact lying to her friends. That needed to be way more prevalent because that reveal came as a surprise to me as much as the characters, and it necessitates a very small but still noticeable low point for the friend group. Which, yeah, I'm glad they didn't do the break up the band bullshit. The fact that it still is like, okay, makes everyone sad, it makes everyone angry at Maya. I didn't even realize that she was lying. So I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I was actively thinking, like, where did I go wrong more than, oh my god, it's so sad that they're like this. Like, maybe it's my fault for missing the memo? Also, Zat's being Maya's love interest only works because he's hot.
Uy, uy, el vampiro guapo.
Like, cool character, love his design, but Zatz has more chemistry with the camera than Maya. Like, I'm down for these two to get together, but 2 main problems. First, Zatz from minute 1, you can tell is into Maya, is definitely going to end up with her, which wouldn't be a problem, if not for number 2, he's dating Akat. Like, this man stands around being embarrassed every time Akat reminds him that they're dating, while clearly cheering for Maya when the 2 girls fight.
Bravo, Maya!
Yeah, he and his dad needed Maya alive for their own coup, but a cat dies, and then Zatz never reacts to it. Like, I don't think Zatz even knows she's dead, so it's weird to me that the story would have those two characters be together, have the other girl die, and for it to never be brought up again. It literally feels like they just wanted to have Zatz break up with a girl to go to Maya to prove how much he's into her. Like, that's it. And that just kind of sours the ship to me a little bit. Yet, even though I'm like, I like how they're looking at the stars, telling stories to each other, but overall, that's just gnawing at the back of my mind, and I can't fully get into it, especially when they're just shown to be a wee bit too perfect for each other. Like, the story ends with them dancing around each other as the sun and moon. And I really like that ending. It really contributes to giving it a mythic feel. But I kind of didn't feel like they earned that. Like, I love the idea, wasn't fully convinced though. Also, I'm really glad Diego Luna's here, and he's showing off all the charm he lost in Rogue One. On the more positive side of things, I fucking loved all the backstories for all the characters. Rico accidentally killing his mentor, causing his already bad personal worth issues, led to a great arc with him learning to love himself, to accept his abilities, and to realize, yes, I am a badass. And I love Chimmy going from isolated cursed child to learning to become ride or die for her new friends. I loved Pichu, who usually had kind of the best arc to me, where we get to see a single act of mercy from him leading to the death of his family. Rather than having like, oh, I'm gonna go kill this one lady, he discovers a new family to protect and reunites with his own in the afterlife. And that scene honestly made me cry. It's these characters that I think truly make Maya and the Three. Maya is my least favorite of the group, but like, they're all A's, I think she's just a B. I think my biggest issue with her as a character is that her effect on other characters, like just her existence and how it plays to the lore and the rest of the story, I often feel like it's more important than what she does as a person. It's more of a small writing thing than an actual character flaw or like, oh, she's too perfect. No, she's fine, she's great. I just don't think her arc works as well as the rest of the cast. Also, just talking about that climax, it was an amazing spectacle that showed off everything that I loved in this show. All the gods getting devoured by Mictlan was a bit much. Like, yeah, I'm all for him killing his minions, that made sense. But the earthquake and gator gods showing up just to get bodied immediately, that wasn't necessary. Same with the forest god, because after like those first two deaths, it stopped being an effective way of building tension. Also, the whole love triangle between Rico, Chimmy, and Pichu didn't need to happen. We get it, Chimmy's hot, but this triangle is such a non-factor they shouldn't have bothered.
Jimmy, want to ride Pichu?
Say what?
That was almost worth it though. We already got the king sweating bullets between his wife he cheated on and the death goddess he slept with. No other ships needed. I rest my case. And my last thought, I can't stop thinking about how unnecessary for Maya's character the first episode is. Because the story makes you think that they're gonna do kind of like a Brave, with a princess bucking the traditional feminine roles forced on her by her parents. But no. Not only is the idea of Maya not being allowed to fight dropped after episode 2, it kind of makes no sense in the context of the world. With Maya's mother already being established to be a badass warrior, the other kingdoms all have female warriors who fight alongside the men, and outside of the hecklers in the fighting pit, Maya being a female who fights is never treated as anything exceptional or noteworthy. Hell, all the women of Maya's kingdom end up fighting the finale, and that's the only other time it gets brought up. It really does feel like you can't fight is coming only from the mom, with her dad seemingly being kind of okay with the idea given his personality and disposition. And it just feels weird that this is built up as such a thing in the first episode. Like, they're like, you have to be a diplomat. Okay, no, your brothers are dead, go ahead and do your thing. I'm only tripping on this because all the marketing, and it just evaporates immediately. Like, if the parents knew that Maya was part of the prophecy and they were just trying to keep her away from the battle, like, yeah, that makes sense, but she's not. They didn't even know Maya was a part of anything until Zatz told them. I can't tell if this Maya you can't fight is a leftover from a different draft of the script or a cliche the studio just wanted to hit. Overall, I loved Maya and the Three. It's a fun adventure show with cinema levels of quality, a great cast, direction, and style, with easily some of my favorite character moments to come out of Netflix this year. It uses a bit too many cliches in constructing its story, but it's worth it. If you like action, comedy, or just want anything animated, this is a show for you. And with this much death involved, keep a box of tissues within arm's reach. This show is a love letter to Mexico, its culture and history, brought to life with easily one of the most iconic styles of the last decade. Check out Mine the 3 on Netflix. I promise you won't regret it. But remember, don't try and binge this all in one go. It's perfect in 3 episodes apiece. Thank you all for watching. Peace out. Good night.